What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So, house sitting for some people today, which is why the location is different. And if you happen to see or hear dogs, that's what's going on. But yeah, today was a weird game. Great to get the win, but yeah, it was not the most straightforward performance. And there were a lot of players that, I don't know, I feel like weren't very, what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't do much to prove themselves today because there were a lot of players that were given a chance to show what they can do because they haven't been playing a whole lot. And frankly, they didn't do enough. But what's funny about that is all you got to do is score a goal and people just suddenly forget that you had a bad game. Or you just have to have one good half and people forget that you were terrible in the first half. Because, I look at the 4 people up for man of the match on Chelsea's Twitter page, and it's Alonso and Ziyech who scored the goals, but were terrible outside of that. And then it's James and Gilmore who were terrible in the first half, but then had a pretty good second half. So I guess that just negates everything they did in the first half. And let's forget about the players who were just consistent throughout, like Espilicueta or Conte or Rudiger or Pulisic and Werner working their butts off up top. Let's just forget about all of them. We only want people that showed out in the second half or scored a goal and did nothing else. Genius. That was kind of funny. But yeah, before I talk about Tuchel and players and stuff, let's of course address the topic that a lot of people have been talking about, and that is of course the penalty in the second half. So here's my opinion on it. I don't think it's a penalty, and of course I'm going to say that because I'm a Chelsea fan. But here's what my 2 points that I can make on that. One, you look at the difference between that and the penalty that was given at the end of the first half. Very similar situations. In the first half, you've got Gilmore behind Jesus, trying not to trip him up, and then he falls over and gets a penalty. Second half, Zuma behind Sterling, trying not to trip him up, and then he still falls over and gets a penalty. The difference between the two is you watch the legs. Gilmore is trying his best not to touch him, but you can see the legs do get tangled. You can see where Jesus' leg gets knocked over into his other leg, trips him up. He still goes for the ball. He still attempts, but the trip happened before he got the shot off, so it affected his shot, which is why it was a penalty. You look at Sterling, his legs don't change. He's running, and then he eventually just falls over, like Sterling does. That's the big difference, in my opinion, between those two, which is why one was given and one was not. The other thing that I'll bring up, which is even more damning in my opinion, is Sterling should have been on the field. If you want to say VAR should have looked at that and given you guys a penalty, well then guess what? They should have looked at the card in the first half and said, that's not a yellow, that's a red, because you can't slide studs up into a guy's leg like that. You just can't. And it's funny because I think Graham Lasso was with Arlo White today in the commentary, and he was talking about, it's pretty similar to some of the red cards that have been given, and, a couple of them gotten rescinded. No, because Vestergaard's that got rescinded was he clears the ball, and his foot is up and raised because he just kicked it out. And his foot comes down and catches studs onto the leg. That's different than I want to get to that ball because I lost it. So I'm going to slide, and when I do, my studs are going to go into the back of the guy's calf with my leg extended. That's a red card. For the life of me, I don't know how he was still on the pitch. And not only would he have gotten that penalty if VAR decided to give it, but also he's the one that got the goal. So in reality, I would say it doesn't really balance out because Sterling should have been on the field, which changes a lot of the game. So of course, Man City fans are going to be adamant that it was a penalty, and Pep, of course, has made his statements that he felt they should have gotten a penalty. But in reality, they were lucky to have 10 after the first half. So there's that. But anyways, let's talk about Tuchel. So it's kind of one of those issues of hindsight's 2020. Because when the game first started and I saw the lineup, my first thought was, okay, that's not bad. You're giving some players some time that haven't gotten to. You're resting some players after a hard-fought midweek game against Real Madrid. And yeah, this is an important game, especially with some of the teams around us dropping points. This is a game we really need to win. But at the same time, I can understand making some changes to try to switch things up, to try to rest players, and give some players a chance to prove themselves. And honestly, if the players that he gave time today had proven themselves and had played extraordinarily, he would have looked like a genius. it would have been brilliant because it's like, see, that's what you do. You give these players a chance to prove themselves, and then they did. And Tuchel, you're a great coach. But unfortunately, that's not how it looked. So it does kind of make him look a little like, why did you make all these changes, Tuchel? Look how much it affected you. Like, you guys were poor in the first half. Because honestly, what the game was, and what it reminded me of really, was our game against Arsenal when Lampard was still in charge, where we were dominating most of the first half, but then we didn't score, and then we didn't score, and then we started letting them have more possession, and then they fought their way back into the game, and then they fought their way back, and then they scored. That's kind of what it felt like. First half, we played well at first, but slowly, they just started dominating possession. They started taking it to us, and then Aguero misses the penalty. And then second half, we come out like spurred on by that, and Man City just kind of played themselves into a hole, and they just struggled to get back up to the speed of it. So it was kind of, yes, we stepped it up in the second half, but City also stepped a gear down. So it's kind of a little bit of both. So that's why we ended up, winning in the end, in my opinion. But as far as Tuchel, it's hard to complain about him wanting to make, I understand why. The one issue I did have, though, with him is why Jorginho for Conte? Because it felt like at that point in the game, we were kind of losing out in the midfield. So why are you going to bring on Jorginho for Conte? Whereas Gilmore, he had stepped it up a little bit in the second half, but it still didn't feel like he was the one controlling the midfield. It still felt like we were losing a lot of our battles because, unfortunately, he's just not quite quick enough or strong enough to be in the midfield today. So it kind of felt like a weird decision to make that change. Obviously, it didn't really hurt us, but it still felt like we weren't really winning much in the midfield because of that. But his other two changes were fine, like Zuma, of course, because Silva, I think, was not available today. And then Hudson-Odoi, I'm glad he gets a chance to play. And Ziyech was a good choice because, again, aside from the goal, what did he do? So yeah, that's about it for Tuchel. Sorry, I'm a little tired, and honestly, I need more water because mouth's a little dry. So first we'll talk about Mendy. Now, of course, he didn't have quite as fantastic of a game as he did against Real Madrid, but to be fair, he wasn't really called on as much as he was against Real. He had to make a couple halfway decent saves, but nothing like the Benzema shot. Nothing like that today. And then, of course, the goal. There's nothing really he could do for that. It's just his defense let him down. But what I will say is for the penalty, something that was really impressive to me is the fact that he didn't just go diving for it. Because I was somebody, I coached keepers at one point. And whenever we talked about penalties, the one thing I would always say is don't guess. If they put it in the corner, obviously, yes, you'll have to guess if you want to get there. Because pretty much there's no keeper in the world that can be quick enough to react to a shot in the corner and make that save. That's a good penalty. But my thing about it was, I would much rather them score a good penalty on you because they had a good penalty and you weren't able to react quick enough to get there. That's fine. I'd rather that than you guess the wrong way and they put it right down the middle and suddenly now you look like an idiot because you guessed instead of just reading the game. So the fact that he didn't fully commit to one side and managed to stop himself and get back to make that save, that was pretty impressive. Because most keepers, once they make that first step, they're done. They make that step and then they're diving. They can't stop themselves. Kepa definitely would have just, as soon as he makes that step, he's diving. So the fact that he stopped himself right at it and then caught it with his other hand, that was a pretty impressive save. Obviously a terrible penalty from Aguero. Not at all saying that he did a good penalty. Wasn't. But Mendy, in my opinion, did well to not get caught out like that. So there's that. On to the defense. First we'll talk about Christensen because, of course, he goes off injured at halftime. This was back to Christensen of last year and the one that I didn't want on my team because just so many issues with getting caught stepping out, jumping into a challenge whenever he has no business to be, getting caught out of position, stepping up when he should be staying back. He just doesn't read the game well enough. And probably the other problem is he doesn't really learn from his mistakes either because what happened that led to the goal happened earlier in the half. He goes jumping into it and then he misses the ball, and then the player's in behind. Like, you already did that once. Instead of moving your feet and putting your body behind it, you tried to stick your leg up and miss the ball, and then you did it again. I was like, how do you make the same mistake twice? Like, after the first time, you should say, all right, next time I'm going to put my body through it. Nope, didn't do it. So, very bizarre there. And then, of course, leading to the goal, I mean, just, you got to be smarter than that. You got to be smarter than making that decision to go flying in and not take the ball and try to take it with your leg when it's about chest height. You can't do that. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know how bad the injury is. Not sure if it's an actual injury or if it's just his ego that was injured there. But, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be effective there when we're facing teams like Man City where they're going to be looking to go in behind us a lot because he doesn't read the game well enough to deal with that. Somebody like Silva, he is smart enough to read that. He is smart enough to see what's happening, make that decision early, decide to go or to step up, one of the two. So that way he's not getting caught in behind. He's not making that mistake of having to try to chase back and then having to barely beat the striker there. So I think Christensen, he's a good defender. He's shown it over the past few games. He's done well when he's not in the middle. But when he's in the middle against a tough team like Man City, I don't think it's going to be successful. Now, Zuma came in at halftime for him, and he also had some issues with as far as like reading the game and seeing the ball get played in behind. Like, he wasn't quick enough to react to that a couple times. But what he does do well is he tracks back well. He's got the pace for it. So even if he does get beaten behind, it's not like he's out of the play. That one slide tackle he made on Sterling to block the goal, I mean, it was fantastic. So clearly he's showing that even though he's still got a bit to learn as far as his positioning and where to be, he's doing well to at least make up the ground when he does make a mistake. So that was good to see. As far as the other two, Rudiger and Azpilicueta, both of them were just solid throughout the game. I mean, nothing much else I can say. They just did their jobs well, and that's all I can really ask for them. So, yeah, in my opinion, one of those two really should have been man of the match. Like, they were the ones that truly kept Man City at bay, because there was a lot of the time where Man City was just sort of playing around the box, but as soon as it got near the box, one of those two is stepping in and making the block. So, wingbacks, a little frustrated. So Alonso, he got the goal, which is good. To be fair, a little lucky. He plants his left foot, takes a wild swing with his right, flicks it off of his left, and it spins toward the goal. A little lucky, but, at least you were there. My problem with him is the rest of the game. He made a few good defensive challenges. He did okay getting forward at times. A couple times he was clever with the ball. But it's just so frustrating to watch him sometimes, because there are moments whenever he just bursts down the field before we've gotten down the field, which means if we give up the ball, now he's way out of position. And then there are times whenever we're looking to play around up front and we need somebody out wide and he's a striker. And there so many times whenever he's been playing recently that I see the cross come in and it's too far and it's to the back post, or it gets flicked on to the back part of the box. I'm thinking, all right, Alonso's there to sweep it up, right? And he's top of the box. He's just standing on top of the box. Or he's already made his run too early, and now the ball's over his head, and now he has to chase it toward the sideline. You should have just been on the line. Now you're running with the ball at the goal. How hard is that? And I've said it before, and it feels like that's not changing. So either Tuchel doesn't mind that he's making this run inside, which I feel like is odd because of how many times it's affected us, honestly, or he's not doing his side of the job, which is why Chilwell has been playing a lot. Because Chilwell's been doing it well. He's been doing both sides of the ball very, very well. Alonso, it feels like he has gaps in his game. And it didn't used to be that way. It used to feel like he was doing his job very well. He knew where to be positionally. There were some times that he did get caught inside a lot, but it's because we set ourselves up to where somebody's making the overlapping run, and now we've got a winger out there, and he's inside as kind of another option. But we're not set up like that right now. Occasionally you'll have somebody step out wide, but most of the time nobody's out there. So why isn't he out there? Is it his fault, or should somebody else be stepping out there? Most of the time it feels like it's his fault. So, but yeah, a little frustrated with him. And then James, first half was pretty much the James that I've been complaining about the past few games he's played. Just lack of energy, didn't really get up to full sprint ever. Like, just very, very easy. You're just kind of trotting around. I'm just like, you gotta go, man. Like, Espilicueta has taken your spot. Like, he has been playing his heart out on the right wing back. He's not a great attacking player. Like, you probably have a bit more attacking talent than he does. But I'd rather take him because he's going to bust it on both sides of the ball instead of you, who's just kind of going to stand there. And then if the ball comes to you, sure, then you might do something. But when the ball's not near you, you're walking around. You're not really ready to react. The ball comes your way. Oh no, somebody was quicker because they were ready for it and you weren't. And it didn't really change until the second half. And then he finally started getting up to speed a little bit. Finally started doing some clever stuff with the ball. Finally started actually getting up to full speed. And he looked like a good player. I'm just like, why can't you do that for the whole game? Because you used to be able to do that. And it feels like recently you've kind of dropped off and you've kind of been taking it easy. And that's not good enough. Especially from a young player, you want them to push themselves. You want them to grow and get better. And it kind of feels like he's just sort of accepted, like, it's okay. Like, yeah, I don't have my spot right now, but it's okay. And that's not a good mentality to have. So, yeah, I was very disappointed with his first half performance. Second half was a bit more impressed, but it's still not the same level that I'm used to seeing from him, like when Lampard first came in. So, then you got the midfielders. Gilmore, same as James. First half looks... So here's the thing. Obviously he looks like a kid, because he is a kid. He's 19. So he looks like a kid, but he's small. He's a little, smaller in stature. Of course he looks like a kid because of that. But today he played like a kid, and he hasn't been that way before. Like, I don't know, he's very bouncy. He's very, he seemed a little unsure. He seemed a little nervous on the ball. And that's not how he played before. So I don't know if it's something, mentally going on with him, or maybe just, some of the nervous energy was affecting his play. But first half, he was playing like he was 19 years old. And that's not normally how he plays. So I was a little disappointed. But second half, he did get a bit better. He started putting in some good challenges. I think his biggest problem in the second half was just the fact that physically he's not really able to keep up. And it's not like he's slow, but he's not as fast as some of the other midfielders. And, some of the other players on Man City are just bigger. They're, Rodri is here and he's right here. So he struggles to keep up with the physical side of the game, which is not necessarily a problem if you, as hard as he works sometimes, he makes up for that. But today it just felt like all that hard work was kind of going wasted in the second half. But he at least did start playing with a bit more confidence in the second half, which is what he used to be like. So I hope it's a sign that he's getting back to what we've seen from him before, because honestly, what I've seen from him at the best of his game is better than Jorginho on an average day. But today, it definitely looked like, especially in the form Jorginho's in right now, I would take Jorginho every day. And I'm not, if you've watched my reviews before, I'm not one to ever say that. So, then Conte, just, again, another day of him being a busybody. A little bit more difficult for him today just because of how Man City was set up. It felt like they were, they left a lot of guys high, which means they got in behind him quite a bit, but he still works his butt off. He still puts in every single effort. He still runs down every ball. On the ball is where he struggled the most today, but again, it's not his game, so I'm not surprised to see that. But definitely more so than he has in the past few games. I felt like he was giving it away a little too cheaply. But it's, in my opinion, it's a minor complaint compared to some of the other players. And one of those other players was Hakim Ziyech today. And, God, I've never been so frustrated with a goal scorer in my life. Because just, what are you bringing? What are you bringing to the pitch? Because it felt like every single time he got on the ball, I'm ready for us to get a counterattack on. Because it just felt like he didn't have a clue what he wanted to do with it. And he's a talented player. We know he's a talented player. He's shown his talent time and time again. But my God, today he just was not on it. And he hasn't been for a while, in my opinion. I think he's been very blasé in his performances. And today was just kind of like, you've got Werner and Pulisic working their butts off up top. And you're just looking for that other attacking creative talent that's going to cause the defense some trouble. Their movement is already dragging everybody around. They're in a formation that they're not used to as well, so it's really difficult to deal with that. But then it gets to Ziyech, and it's just like he's taking a touch and he slows it down. And while I'm thinking about it, Reece James was doing that a lot too in the first half. It just kind of popped in my head again. It was a lot of moments where we're getting it out wide to him, and we can't do anything with it because it's touch, and he's standing on it. Just like, what is standing on it going to do? I can promise you it's not going to score goals to just stand on the ball. But yeah, Ziyech, I mean, it was just too slow. His touch most of the time was awful. I mean, for all the talent he has no business putting in a performance like this. And again, he scored the goal, so people just sort of forget about it for some reason, but I'm not going to forget about it. Because I would much rather get somebody in, like Werner, who's going to bust his butt all game and cause the defense a lot of issues and maybe not score, than Ziyech, who's going to do nothing most of the game, give away a lot of our attacks, but then maybe pop up with a goal because he's got the ability to. I don't know. I'd much rather work the defense to death than just give them an easy game and then maybe get a goal out of it. Because, I mean, yeah, it's good to get a goal, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it doesn't settle for you just right every game. So, I don't know. I'm really frustrated with Ziyech right now. I feel like he's not giving his all, and I want to see him give his all. I want to see the player that we brought because I think he can be that. And is it because he's not used to this formation? Is it because he's out of position? Maybe. But I still think with all the talent he has, he should be able to deal with being a bit more inside rather than being out wide. But I feel like he's not really changing anything. He's just kind of staying where he is. And in my opinion, it's not good enough. Pulisic and Werner, I already talked about a little bit. But yeah, I mean, both of them, they were really working hard. Pulisic, his touch today was a little off. There were a couple moments where it felt like he gave it away a little too cheaply. But he was still probably one of our best outlets going forward. Just because of his ability to turn defenders and get into space quickly and just really cause the defense a lot of trouble because they can't really step high on you if you've got to worry about Pulisic receiving it and then getting behind you. And the same thing for Werner. I mean, you can't really step as high as you want to because Werner's going to beat most of your defenders with pace. That's just the fact of it. Now, I will say something that was a little frustrating for me to watch was how many times Werner gets in behind and then they wait a little bit too long or they don't send it to him. And then whenever they decide to, it's the moments that he's offside. And of course, he's got to get better about timing his run or curling his run a little bit better. But there were some moments where he's offside, but the player who sent it to him could have sent it 2 touches earlier. But then they didn't, then they send it, and then he's offside. I'm just like, why are you waiting so long to send it to him? You know he's going to get there. Send it to him earlier. So, yes, he needs to work on being offside as much, but the teammates need to work on sending it to him quicker too. They are not guiltless in this. Because, I've seen, obviously, people were talking about it, and it's something that I made a comment about too during the game. I'm like, God, how many times is he going to be offside? But then, they show the replay. I'm like, why did you take that extra touch before you sent it to him, though? Because he was onside before that. So, kind of a catch-22. But, yeah, both, he needs to work on that part of his game, and then the players that are sending it to him need to work on sending it quicker. So, Jorginho, when he came on, didn't really do anything that amazed me or astounded me, but had another solid game. And he's a player that has been on my crap list for a while, and he's slowly getting himself off of it. So, yeah, if he can keep putting in these solid performances where he's either doing well defensively and it's noticeable, or he's just doing his job so well that I don't notice him, that's fine. I'd much rather not notice him in a game than notice him because he's given 3 assists to West Brom. So, and then the final sub was Hudson-Odoi, and another good appearance off the bench for him. Full of energy. I think it was actually, I think his run is the one that set up the second goal. It was a little nice burst of pace around half line, and then he sent it to somebody who I think crossed it in. I can't remember now. The game was at 12:30 and it's nearly 10 o'clock now, so I waited way too long to do this review, so I forget everything about the game. But yeah, he came on and looked full of energy again, nearly got himself a goal, and just really worked hard. And I have to think that whatever he's doing as practice is not convincing Thomas Tuchel to pick him, because whenever I see him on the pitch, whenever I see him in games, I'm thinking, why are you not playing him more? So it's got to be something he's doing at practice, and I don't know what it is. But, I mean, the fact that he's not getting more playing time seems odd based on his performances. The only thing I will say is, again, when he starts, it feels like he does fade in the second half. But I don't know how much of that is his focus not good enough to stay focused the full game, or is his fitness not good enough because Tuchel's not playing him enough? I don't know. And it's something that I don't think I'll ever know. So, but yeah, based on his performance today, again, it was another solid performance, another hardworking performance, and I enjoy whenever he comes on the pitch. So, well, don't know why he's not getting picked more. But with all that being said, though, that's about it for this game. I mean, it's a good win. We pick up 3 points on Leicester and go past them. Pick up 3 points, hopefully, on West Ham because they've got Everton tomorrow. So, hopefully that game goes our way too. I feel like everybody around us just needs to play Newcastle, though, because I feel like Newcastle has just been winning games for us. Like, they beat West Ham, they drew Tottenham, and now they've beaten Leicester. Like, now Man U needs to go play Newcastle. And then some of the other teams that are... I mean, honestly, West Ham and Leicester are really the only 2 teams we have to truly worry about, I think. I know Liverpool is pretty close, but Tottenham just keeps slipping up, so... Don't know what's going to happen with them, but yeah, all in all, good result. Not the best performance. Some players need to really look at themselves and say, hey, I got to do better if I want to feature in the team more, because today was not a good showing for most of those players. So, but that's it for me. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought about the game and the players. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.